Good morning, everybody. Wisconsin's 7th Congressional District Representative Tom Tiffany is back for our monthly chat today, Thursday, November 14th, 2024. For Dryden.com, I'm Ben Dryden, and you're watching Dryden Wire Live, presented by Professional Steers. That's the wrong show. By Americans for Prosperity, Wisconsin. AFP Wisconsin works to... everything's all blown up here. Works to reignite the American dream and break down government barriers that hold us back from our full potential. Visit afpwisconsin.com to learn more and to join AFP to fight for more freedom for all Wisconsinites. On today's show, we will get the Congressman's takeaways on the election results, leadership votes, President-elect Trump's recent nominations, as well as what Tom's priorities will be for his next term coming up. With that said, we welcome back to the show Wisconsin's 7th Congressional District Representative Tom Tiffany. Tom, good morning, sir, and hey, congratulations on your election win last week.
Thank you. Good to join you as always.
Yeah, how are things going over there? Wait, hold on, before we start, I don't want to forget. My wife keeps asking me to ask you about the pin on your lapel, and I keep forgetting to ask because I have a dumb little husband brain. I always forget to ask you. But she made sure before she left for work this morning to ask, what is that? She sees it all the time that you wear it, and is there any significance to it?
So when I'm in Washington, D.C., there.
Yep.
That pin is a pin that we get every 2 years. There's a new pin that's created for each session of Congress. So what do I have now? Because I came in for a short while, 6 months in 2020, I have 3 pins. I'll get a 4th one now. But what it does is when we move around the Capitol and the Capitol grounds, it's a signal. One of the biggest things is it's a signal to security that is a congressman. Because, there's 435 of us, right? They can't remember all of us. Sure. So if you're wearing a pin like this, we get to go through security, stuff like that, without being checked. And it also... importantly tells security that, okay, that's a congressman. I don't have to, we have full access. It's our United States Capitol as a result of the votes we've received from the citizens of this country. So yeah, it's a signal to people that, hey, that's
get out of my way.
Right. No, I don't use it that way. And I don't want it to come across that way.
I know you don't.
That's not how we use it, but it does allow us to go through security without having to go through the magnetometers, stuff like that.
Yeah, and it probably, it wouldn't hurt to wear that when you get pulled over for speeding. Just saying. Hey, by the way, hello, pin.
I don't wear it at home.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
You should.
I don't wear it at home. And I would never pull rank like that on.
So this is your 3rd term.
I know you're saying that. I know you're saying
that. Of course,
that
just joking.
I would never pull that rank.
I love how you have to clarify, because you never know when someone's going to just take a clip of this and then, use it against you out of context.
Well, with the number of people that watch Dryden Wire, my God, half the world watches.
Oh, shut. So speaking of what, before we get into this, you 3rd term, what do you get with that? A bigger office, more staff, better parking spot, discount at the Capitol Cafe, anything?
Could get a better parking spot, but I don't have a car out here,
right.
So that doesn't make any difference. Yeah. It might help my staff, though, get better parking spots with seniority. We do move up the ladder in terms of when we get to choose our office. So I would say now, I haven't checked. I think there's like maybe 60 or 70 new members for this Congress. So I'm getting into the upper half now, even though it'll just be my 3rd full term.
Right.
I'm getting to the upper half in terms of having been here. There's been a lot of turnover out here over the last few years. And so that does affect the office that you get to claim. We really like the office that we got this term. It's the newly renovated offices in the Cannon office building up on the 4th floor. And but we're going to take a look. If we see something that's better, we'll move. But otherwise, it's not likely we'll move. We're getting pretty settled into the place we're at.
Sure. And by the way, good morning, Dave Wilson, and to Steve as well, who have already commented this morning. And by the way, if anyone has any questions for the Congressman, please feel free to put those in the comments. So let's get to the election results. Are you the kind of person that stays up really late and watches, or it's like, I'll watch until it's bedtime and then I'll check it in the morning?
You know, my staff, they're poring over their computer screens and they're looking at it and all the rest. And I just let them do it at this point.
Yeah,
And,
yeah.
I actually have a couple towns that I look at first to see.
How
I
they
view them
voted?
as yeah, and I kind of view them as bellwethers. So I compare the previous election, and you got to do, like elections. So you got to do like presidential elections versus off presidential years.
Sure.
But there's a couple towns that I look at because I can kind of figure out or have an idea that, okay, this is where we're headed in this election within looking at like 3 towns. And
Really?
it's really quite indicative of what's going to happen. And I'll name one: Sugar Camp, the town of Sugar Camp in Oneida County. There's some people over there that send me the election results as soon as they're done. I mean, I have them usually by like 8:30, and I immediately look at the percentages. For example, now the 2024 election versus the 2020 elections, and it was interesting because the percentages in Sugar Camp were identical for president 2024 versus 2020. What was different is they had about 5 to 10% more voters. And so when you look at Donald Trump winning 2-1 in the town of Sugar Camp, that means that additional 60 voters broke 40 for Trump, 20 for Biden. And it was a leading indicator for northern Wisconsin, where we had much higher turnout. Oneida County, where I live, 94% of registered voters turned out to vote. Vilas County, 91%. Usually those numbers are like 80, 85%, which is very good. But the numbers were much higher. And that was an indicator, those additional votes that came out, additional voters that came out, that Trump was going to get more votes, especially in rural Wisconsin. And that is exactly what happened. The people in the 7th Congressional District, northern and western Wisconsin, they basically outvoted Dane County and Milwaukee in this election for president.
Isn't that something?
That's amazing.
And by the way, good morning, Gabe Magnifici. So wait, so you had said the votes for Trump over Biden. You're talking this election, so it would have been Harris, or are you referring to 4 years ago?
Yeah, this election,
okay,
there were more voters that turned out in the rural parts of Wisconsin. And it wasn't just the 7th Congressional District. It was across rural Wisconsin. There was a significantly higher turnout. And when those people are generally voting 60-40 or 2-1 for Trump over Kamala Harris, that means that there's going to be a lot more votes for Donald Trump in a statewide election. And that's why I say the people in rural Wisconsin, they basically outvoted Dane County and Milwaukee.
I'm not kidding. That's awesome to hear. And I hope the powers that be in, let's say, Wisconsin, that they start paying attention to that. But we have to give them a reason to. Obviously here, with us in rural North Wisconsin, we keep saying, well, how come, give us some love and pay attention to us, and candidates, how come you're only down there? You don't come up here and talk to us. Now, some do. Like I know Eric Hovde, he was up here all the time. Brad Schimmel, there's a race coming up. He's up here all the time in northern Wisconsin, but a lot of them aren't. And I think we all kind of know why, is really just look at, you go and campaign where the votes are. So hopefully this is an eye-opener, and hopefully northern Wisconsin keeps representing.
I think it's one of the things, when you look at this through the Republican lens, the thing that you hope happens is that these voters, many of them who are, the phrase that was used so often in this election cycle was low propensity voters. Democrats have done a very good job of getting low propensity voters to vote for them the last number of election cycles. It's why Dane County was seeing 90-95% turnout in some of their municipalities. Well, it turns out if rural Wisconsin can match that intensity, match that type of turnout, that they can win a race like happened last Tuesday. And so, that's the thing that we hope now as Republicans, and I'm sure Democrats are going to be looking at this and say, boy, we got to, we're going to have to ramp up a little bit more, or we're going to need to appeal to people in these rural areas more. I thought I saw something from the head of the Democrat Party in Wisconsin, Ben Wickler, where he said, we need to go to where people are at to convince them to vote for us. And that's certainly something I'm sure that they're going to be looking at. But the big question now will be, will those low propensity voters that voted for Donald Trump last Tuesday, are they going to show up for these other elections? For example, the spring election that you referred to in regard to the Supreme Court race. Are they going to show up? Because if they don't show up, then you're going to see the liberal or progressive or the Democrat candidate win. If these people continue to show up, they really give the conservative cause or conservative candidates an opportunity to be able to win these statewide elections.
So I think a lot of people, well, a lot of media had Kamala Harris winning that election. I think Daily Mail, and if there's one other, there's only two that I am aware of out of probably 30 that actually picked Trump to win. And I think it was actually the Daily Mail actually picked him to win by essentially what he ended up winning by. They used a different model, and they had other formulas. It wasn't just, I don't know, I guess this is what it's going to be. Were you surprised that he won? And if not, were you surprised by how convincingly? A lot of people went into this thinking it's going to get dragged out for a while. We may not know. We kind of knew pretty quick. Were you surprised by that?
Yeah, no, so I wasn't surprised, but you always wait until the voters. I mean, the voters have the final verdict in regards to this. It isn't the pollsters and all the rest, and it's a great parlor game to be talking about the polls and stuff like that. But in this era of social media, people being, far fewer landline phones out there, and it is just very difficult to poll. And the good pollsters will tell you that. This era is so hard to poll. I think probably the closest pollster this year was one by the name of Atlas. He was, that guy hit it really close. But yeah, the polls are only worth so much. And I would say most of the pollsters miss those low propensity voters, especially on the Trump side, that are first time voters, or this is the first time they voted in, maybe a decade. Something like that. And I think they were missing those voters once again. And it's why some people were surprised that President Trump won all 7 of the swing states. But I think the other piece of data that was really important there is that he made significant gains in some of the blue states. Wasn't it in California? He did like 12% better than he did in 2020. Yeah. I mean, he made serious gains, including in some of the big cities. And that's part of the reason why I think Democrats are doing some real soul searching at this point, because there is no doubt who won this election. It wasn't just an electoral college election win. This was a popular vote election win. And so it is a much different animal than it was in 2016 in terms of the results.
So the Senate ended up going GOP, which I think most people did kind of, I wouldn't say predict. I don't think that was a huge surprise. But the House...
That was expected.
But the House, it seems as though they have that now, correct? I don't know if that's like official or not, but everyone seems to say that they've gotten all their in. I think I think they have, right? Isn't that basically official-ish?
Yes, so it is official that we will have the majority. It's just a matter of how many, because California is still counting ballots in the election. We expect to end up at about 221 or 222. So like if we're at 221, then the Democrats would be at 214. Yeah. And that's basically where we expect to be. But I got to tell you, in regards to California, Arizona, and some of those states, we need to pass a law that you get your election results in and done. In the 21st century, to have people that we don't know who has been elected in California for days, and it's going to turn into weeks here possibly. That's just a blight on our elections in California, Arizona, and the rest of them. This is one place where I would support federal law that requires states to get their election results in. I mean, so first of all, I would support making sure that only citizens vote. Non-citizens cannot vote in your elections. I think we should do that federally. The other thing I think we should do federally is that you have to have your election results in by a certain time, because this dragging things out for weeks, like California and a couple other states do, I mean, that's just ridiculous.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, at this point, come on, we can't figure that one out.
I mean, look at Florida.
I
Florida
mean,
put
jeepers.
their reforms in after hanging chads back in 2000. You know, the debacle that was
Right.
Florida. 5 years later, they had these significant reforms in. Here's what the fourth biggest state in the country, and man, by midnight, boom, their election results are in. Florida can do it. Any state can.
Any state can do it. So now that it is, when do leadership votes start taking place? And also, how many leadership quote unquote positions are there? I think I know some of the bigger ones. We'll stick to the House, for example. Be the Speaker, the leader, and what, the whip? Is that it? Just three? Is that
No,
considered like what?
there are more elected positions than that. So both the Senate and the House, we had our leadership elections yesterday.
Oh,
And in the House, we voted Mike Johnson back as Speaker. Steve Scalise will be the Majority Leader. Tom Emmer from our neighbor over in Minnesota, he will be the whip. Once again, those three positions do not change. The House Conference Chair, that's an elected position. That'll be Lisa McClain out of Michigan. For those people that follow such things, Elise Stefanik from New York was the House Conference Chair. She will be the United Nations ambassador for President Trump, so she'll be leaving the House of Representatives. And then we have a vice chair position. There's a couple other positions that are relatively minor positions that are elected also.
do you get kind of peel it back a little bit, or a little behind the curtains, like how the sausage is made? When it comes to this stuff, do you get phone calls, like you specifically? Do you get calls of saying, are you going to, we're thinking about putting this person up. Can we count on your vote? Is that how that works, where nobody really talks about it? You just go and you vote. And do you get kind of asked, are you interested in any of these things? Is there a conversation about it? Kind of feel where everybody is at all?
No, no one's asked me to do something like that. I think it's something that needs to be driven by the individual if you really want to do it or not.
Okay.
And this is not. It's not what I've been seeking. It's just not what I've been seeking.
Sure.
But yeah, there's a lot of lobbying going on behind the scenes. So in the last week, starting after Election Day, man, I've been getting phone calls from people that wanted to be House Conference Chair, that wanted to the Vice Chair, whatever, in all these positions. So yeah, there's been a bunch of calls that have been going on, and I usually I defer and I just say, I'll take what you have to say into consideration, and I'll make a decision when it comes time to vote.
Sure. President-elect Trump has been nominating a lot of individuals for key positions. And there's some that are a little more head scratchers to some people, and other ones seem to kind of make sense. I know, I just wanted kind of your takeaways on some. I think there's been like 5 or 6 that are probably more notable. Were any of them head scratchers to you, or kind of, that's an interesting pick? Not saying I didn't like it, just that's interesting. Any of them stand out to you?
So first of all, I think he's making it very clear that I am going to advance my agenda. We are going to be tough on China. No more of this coddling China as has happened over the last 4 years. He is insistent. He spoke to us yesterday in conference, the House conference, and he was insistent that tariffs need to be used. And he said, you don't use them willy-nilly, but you use them very strategically, because you can change behavior. And one of his favorites that he mentions is that there are 2 countries that trade with the United States, and they were about to go to war. And he said to them, I'm going to put tariffs on you guys if you go to war. And he said it wasn't too much longer that both countries got back to him and said, well, maybe war isn't the best angle. So, that's one example of how he's used tariffs. So he really believes that tariffs should be used. And I think you're going to see additional appointments here that are going to reflect that. But he is very concerned about the woke military that we have. I mean, we've seen people drummed out as a result of vaccine mandates. We've seen this whole we can turn men into women type thing. I mean, that type of stuff, he's like, no, that has no place in the military. And I think he's also very concerned about the military has become very top heavy and it's become very DC oriented. Rather than thinking every day about how we're going to win the next war, we got these people that are just focused on being woke and DEI. And that's why I think he picked Pete Hegseth, because he wanted to send a message to the generals that, you know what, this is about the rank and file military. And those grunts, they know what's going on up on top, and they're tired of it. And we want to have a lethal fighting force. That's what the military is for. And I think that's why he picked Pete Hegseth, is to send a strong message to the generals, because they have become, I think it can safely be said, President Trump thinks they've just become fat and sassy sitting out here in Washington, D.C.
Elon Musk and Vivek, was it Ramaswamy in this?
Ramaswamy.
Ramaswamy, thank you. So first of all, is that I've read that this is a brand new department or agency, whatever you want to call it. But somebody told me yesterday that actually that's always existed, just nobody ever used it. So I'm not really sure if it's like a brand new thing or something that we've never used. I don't know if you know the answer to that. I don't know the answer to that. But regardless, they were talking about basically government efficiency. I can't remember the actual name of it. I think it's like DOGE, and I don't know if that's like pronounced a certain way.
Doge.
Is Doge? Well, I've never heard it, so thank you, because I don't know how you say that. Doge. What are your thoughts on that?
It is actually the initiative that President Trump has put out there in the first week that I'm most excited about.
I thank you. I told Jerusha last night that I was going to bring this up, and she goes, "What is that?" So I kind of explained a little bit to her. She goes, "Oh, that sounds like totally right up Tom's alley. He's going to love that." She called it.
Yeah, I think this has the greatest potential. So it's the Department of Government Efficiency. You know, I can't answer your question if it's an existing.
No.
I mean, only Congress can create an agency of federal government, like a Department of Interior, or whatever. And so I don't know exactly how he's fitting that in there, but I don't really care. I think this is so exciting that he has taken Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy and said, you guys, we have a government that's completely out of control. They're spending money that's just foolish. I mean, you spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on transgender issues in Ecuador, and I throw that out as it's probably not correct, but anyhow, it's that kind of stuff that's just, when the American people see it, they just go, what? What in the world are you doing there, spending the American people's money that way? So what I expect them to do is they're going to create an online database that they're going to expose all these things. And this is going to be terrific for the American people, because it's going to lend transparency to how your taxpayer dollars are spent. So the initial estimates are, we could save $3 trillion. I have no idea if that's accurate or not, but all I know is there's hundreds of billions that can be saved if we follow through with this. And I really hope Musk and Ramaswamy, that they work diligently at this, that they create the database, that they travel around the country and highlight this for people, and they put pressure on us in Congress to fix this stuff, because Congress has not had the will, and this is both, it's primarily Democrats, but it's some Republicans too, have not had the will to say, we need to end some of these programs. There's fundamental programs that we should protect: Social Security, Medicare, the mail should be delivered. Those things should be funded. But there's a lot of other stuff where there is so much waste. I mean, let me give you a quick example. Look over in Minnesota, Feeding Our Future. That scandal under Governor Walz, which, by the way, you Minnesotans are watching, return to sender. Tim Walz is back in your state. And but they spent $250 million on this Feeding Our Future fraud during the COVID days. And it all went out, almost all of it was a scam. $250 million from the people of Minnesota and the taxpayers of the United States of America. That stuff has got to stop. I mean, even like Medicare, a very important program, there's a significant amount of waste. There are government watchdogs that have said as much as 20% goes out fraudulently. This stuff has got to stop. And I'm sure hopeful that these guys, if they hit $1 trillion, they will be as successful as possible. Yeah. Anyhow, I am excited about that effort.
Yeah, and my understanding is that they are not the ones who actually do this. That would take Congress. But they are simply to present to Congress essentially their findings and their recommendations. Is that correct?
Yeah, that could be correct. I don't know the exact process, but that's what I expect.
Sure.
And I hope Congress and the appropriators say,
Listens.
okay,
Yeah.
it's time to draw a line through that budget item.
Yeah. Tulsi Gabbard, your thoughts on that nomination?
Well, that's a message from President Trump, because that's DNI, National Intelligence, right? Isn't that Department of
Yep.
National Intelligence?
Mhm.
Well, this is a clear message to those people that you need to stop violating people's civil rights. For people that do not know the story behind this, Tulsi Gabbard, former Democrat congressman, ran as for the Democrat nomination for president back in 2020. And when she went against the Democrat Party line, they drummed her out. And she's now supporting President Trump, as many people know. Well, they went and, Ben, hang on a second.
Sure.
I see my screen went a little dim. I'm going to plug it in, make sure we got power there.
Yes.
So Tulsi Gabbard, they took the TSA, which we all go through in airports, and they profiled her. And they are forcing her to go through a more advanced process where she's getting delayed up to like 45 minutes or an hour to be able to get on a plane. And she discovered it this summer, and she's like, well, why are they making me do this? It turns out they were targeting her. This is a message from President Trump to the intelligence agencies. There's a new sheriff in town, and you guys need to stop playing your games, working with the social media companies, in this case, working with TSA to target people. That is not what you're supposed to be doing. You're supposed to be protecting the American people, not persecuting them.
Would you say that is another message from President-elect Donald Trump? Would that apply to Matt Gaetz being selected as the nominee for Attorney General? Because I think that one was a head scratcher for a lot of people.
Very clear message to the Department of Justice and the FBI. You guys got to start doing it. You need to work for the American people. I was on a flight this summer, and I happened to be sitting next to a longtime FBI agent, and he's just a rank and file guy. And he was telling me that we are so concerned, those of us that are in the rank and file, about the leadership of the FBI, that they have lost their way in protecting the American people. And this is being heard. I mean, we've had a number of FBI whistleblowers that have come to us in the Judiciary Committee saying the same thing. So this is an effort to get the FBI and the Department of Justice turned around, where they're working for the American people, trying to stop crime rather than going after Catholics in the Richmond Diocese in Virginia, going after people that go to school board meetings and happen to raise their voice because they're concerned about how their kids are being treated in school, that an FBI that is working hand in glove with the social media companies to stifle political messages. That stuff's got to stop. And Matt Gaetz is the type of person that will make that happen. I would say one other thing about Matt Gaetz, and I hope there's some Democrats that are watching the show here. You're going to be surprised at how Matt Gaetz is going to come down on your side on some issues in terms of privacy and things like that. Matt Gaetz worked with Democrats as much as anybody that I saw in the Judiciary Committee in regards to like antitrust violations, privacy issues. There's various things like that. Matt is very open-minded on that stuff, that he isn't just a doctrinaire Republican. He believes in people's civil liberties. And I tell you, if people give him a chance, he has the ability to take our the FBI and the Department of Justice back to where it is supposed to be, where it protects. It's meant to protect the American people, not go after them because of their political views.
So he resigned from his position. So I think they have Florida. I think they have some time now to run a special election if they chose to. I believe that's how that would work. And there was an investigation into him but that kind of stops that investigation. And I read this morning, it's from CBS News, that the House Ethics Commission, who was doing an investigation into Matt Gaetz, I think they're meeting tomorrow, according to CBS News, to talk about, do we still release that information? Do you think they should release the findings of their investigation, considering that it's not their purview anymore? There is no investigation if the person isn't in Congress. Do you think they should still release it or not?
I think there should be full information out there, but it's got to be done in a way that you're not tipping the scales one way or the other. But I always believe in having full information out there. Remember, Matt Gaetz' name they went after him a number of years ago, and his name was cleared. And he had to spend a lot of money in order to clear his name. So as long as it's done in a fair manner, I believe in full transparency.
We may have to get to more of this, more detailed next month's show, because you only have like 2.5 minutes before you have to go. But real quickly, priorities for your next term or this coming up term for you, are they different from the ones before? Or is there something that you really want to get into this next 2 years?
You know, the big issues, we got to limit the government spending, as we talked about with the Doge, with Musk and Ramaswamy. I'm really hoping that that's going to be effective. A big reason that we have the inflation we have is that we spend way too much money in Washington, D.C. We do not have a revenue problem out here. We've got a spending problem. So that's number one. We need to get control of that. Second of all, we got to secure the southern border. And I'm hoping H.R. 2 that I helped write, that we bring it back, we get it passed, so the president has all tools possible to get the border secure. We got to get back to energy independence. Serving on the Natural Resources Committee, we need to produce energy wherever and however we can, and have low-cost energy, because America thrives when we do that. Regionally, I expect to bring back wolf delisting, and I am really hopeful that Senator Baldwin, with her being reelected, that she is going to champion it this time and convince Democrats in the Senate that they should vote for this. It is time to delist the wolf. And the other thing, I've got a document in my hands, Access for Rural America. That's a bill that I introduced on a bipartisan basis to allow, especially our regional cooperatives that are putting in broadband, that they're going to be able to continue to do it. Now, it's a bit of an arcane bill. It has to do with the number of shareholders, that type of thing. And but it's an important piece of legislation. We need to get through financial services so we can roll out broadband to as many people in rural America as possible. So it's stuff like that I'm going to be working on, both on a local, regional basis, as well as the big picture issues of securing the border, ending the inflation that we've had that's that's eating up people's paychecks and Social Security checks, and let's get back to a strong America.
Well, I look forward to next month's show. We can get into those a little more in depth. You have roll call. I heard the recess bell go off a little bit ago, so you're gonna have to go. Tom, until next month. Thanks so much.
Good to join you, Ben.
Special thank you to Wisconsin's 7th Congressional District Representative Tom Tiffany for taking the time to come on for a chat today. I'll see all of you next Tuesday when Barron County Sheriff Chris Fitzgerald and I will be back for our latest weekly Positive Tuesday with Ben and Fitzy show. So until then, for DrydenWire.com, I'm Ben Dryden saying thank you for watching, and as always, have a blessed day.